This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr. Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an IRONCLAD original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. Just want to take a moment and thank everyone who made my latest novel, Only the Dead, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list in hardcover, ebook combined, and audio. It is sincerely appreciated. My guest today, his second time on the podcast, Remi Adeleke. Remi is an actor, filmmaker, author, entrepreneur, and former Navy SEAL. You have seen him in films like Six Underground, Transformers, Ambulance, Plane, and The Terminal List on Amazon Prime. He also starred in the Fox reality competition show Special Forces World's Toughest Test, the U.S. version of the popular British TV series SAS Who Dares Wins. His memoir, Transformed, takes you on Remi's journey from Nigeria to the Bronx to the SEAL teams. His latest novel, Chameleon, a black box thriller, is available now. And without further ado, Remi Adeleke. Remi, thanks for coming up, man, and making the trek up here. And it's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, brother. It's an honor and blessing to be here.
Oh, man.
Yes, sir.
And gosh, we talked a lot about your history and book over here, Transformed, and in the first podcast that we did, but now you're here in person.
Yeah.
Awesome to see you and talk about Chameleon, but I want to talk about some other stuff too.
Yeah.
Let's kick it off with, for people that haven't heard the whole backstory, I think go back to that first podcast, get the book, more importantly, get the book, which I understand has been optioned.
Yeah, well, purchased. It's
That's
been purchased, the book rights, my life rights, and then I was hired to write the screenplay from a major studio, can't mention just yet. Screenplay's done. I'm actually going to be doing more rewrites on it after the writer's strike because I'm a WGA writer, so I can't touch it. But yeah, I'm excited.
Man, that is because when you're reading that thing, you're like, oh, this is 100% should be a movie. Yeah. Like that's the thought that you have when you're reading this thing going through, because it's, I mean, obviously such a unique story.
Yes,
no one has anything that's kind of parallels it. It's unique, 100%. And it's just an amazing story. So we talk about that on the first one. I'm so excited that it's in the process, heading that direction, although everything's on pause for writer's strike. Same with us. Same thing for season 2, Terminal List, and the spinoff Ben Edwards series. We're all pencils down on all that stuff, and which gives me a chance to work on book 7. So for me, I just shift focus, you know. But what do you think about the writer's strike right now? Have you been out there? Have you gone out to the picket lines and seen the guys out there?
You know, I live down in San Diego, so it's been hard to get out there. What I've been trying to do is, voice my support via social media and just keep it going that way. And, anytime I get the chance to jump on a podcast, talk about it. But as far as my thoughts, I think it's 100%. It's 100% necessary. Being a WGA writer, I've been in situations where producers and studios will take advantage. They'll try and get what they can get and not pay for the services. And as I mentioned on a post a while back, without a writer, there's no books. Without a screenwriter, there's no movies, there's no TV shows. And so, it's important that we get our due. I don't think we need to get up way above and beyond astronomical numbers, but, we shouldn't have to compete with AI, which is a whole another topic.
So are those the two big issues? I think there are a bunch of things have been building for a while, right? The streaming stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of issues. Yeah. But the main ones that you hear about are 1, AI, and 2, the streaming side of the house. Because since the last writer's strike, a lot has happened. The growth of streaming and all the rest of it. So it seems like that's been building for a while, and it seemed like the strike was coming for a while. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, let's say January of this year, it just seems like AI has been on everyone's mind, and this really seems to be the first union, the first industry to tackle AI.
100%, because the studios, what they want to do is they want to be able to use AI and not have to pay writers, because if Netflix which, by the way, during negotiations, during the WGA, AMPTP negotiations, we brought it up, the WGA brought up, hey, we want to minimize and not have AI be used. And the AMTP said, we're not even discussing that. We're not even going to have a conversation about that. And one of the big pushers of that were the streamers, for the most part, because they could save a lot of money by having an AI generate a script and then have an executive or an assistant fill in the blanks. And now they don't have to pay WGA scale. So that is a huge issue. Then also there is the residuals, as you brought up. Residuals on network and cable are way more than residuals with streamers, and the streamers are making a whole lot of money.
My experience in Hollywood is very limited to one show. That is all I know.
It was an awesome show, though.
Thank
man.
you.
It was
thank you that you were in.
No, thanks for the opportunity, man. It was awesome. I mean, the writing was amazing on Terminal List. The acting was phenomenal. Chris Pratt crushed it. Everybody crushed it. LaMonica Garrett, everybody absolutely crushed it. I love that it was so authentic and grounded. And as we kind of talking about offline, there weren't those unrealistic situations where you have somebody who shouldn't be beating up 100 people or fighting off 100 people by themselves doing that. So it was a great, and that's why it was successful. And I think that, right now, the public is hungry for authenticity. What's real, what's raw, what gets to the truth. And there's so much out there. That's the one thing that's essentially differentiating between all the other stuff and content like Terminal List. And I think I know it's going to continue to crush, just like your books are continuing to crush season after season because of how real, raw, and authentic it is, man. But it was an honor to be a part of it, man.
Oh, well, thank you. And it's like every meeting that we had, Chris and Antoine, we'd always talk about how we're making this for that person who went downrange to Iraq and Afghanistan. We're not making it for critics. We're not making it for awards. We want that person that went downrange to put their feet up on that couch, crack that beer at the end of the day, turn this thing on, and at least know we made the effort to make the show for them. There's always going to be that percentage of Hollywood hot sauce in these things that move the plot forward and do certain things here and there. But we wanted them to realize that we made something for them, not for anybody else. And Antoine always on set or in the editing and post-production, it was always like, hey, if somebody watches this, if a SEAL watches this, will they roll their eyes at this part? And if the answer was yes, boom, done. We're cutting it, we're moving things around, or we're reshooting it if he's out there and directing it the day of. And so that was really cool to see that and see everybody focused and have such a cool vibe on set with so many people coming up to me and telling me that they've been on hundreds of movie sets and they never felt this way on one before. And that's all due to Chris and Antoine at the top setting that tone strategically for the entire production.
But then also the foundation of it, the book, the book, having that foundation that played a major role in setting that tone from the get and bringing that team together, because books are awesome. And congratulations on season 2.
Thank you.
And the Ben
Edwards spinoff. That
was a sick character.
That was. People really, and Taylor brought it to the next level. That was one that was so much more thoughtfully developed in the writer's room. And then Taylor comes to it and takes that and elevates it to a whole new level, like much more so than it was in the novel. So that's one of the characters that I saw totally elevated above and beyond what I had in the book. And Taylor just crushed it. So it made sense to do
like when I saw him and his performance and the way he acted and the way he spoke and brother. I was like, he's a team guy.
He's got the tats, he's like, drinking the whole thing. But he was fantastic. So we have we got up to episode 5 in the writer's room, and before the strike hit and pencils down as soon as that writer strike hit. But they are good. Like I am so fired up, and it's also there's no the characters were part of the books, but there isn't something that someone can go, oh, let's go to the Ben Edwards storybook. This was wrong. This was wrong. This was different here. I hate it.
So you're creating the whole world from the ground. How far back is the story going to go?
I don't know how I can, but I don't think I'm allowed to say exactly. But it goes back to his split from the SEAL teams to the CIA.
So it just getting into the
and so that side of it, and this one goes international. So rather the first one is a action thriller, conspiracy thriller, revenge thriller. This one's like international spy thriller. So it goes to that. So it really expands, takes things international, and really elevates things to a whole new level.
And
so
I'm assuming that because we know what happened at the end of season 1, that he played a huge role in everything that went down. This is almost like a Venom type anti-hero, dead, just the
this is the setup. Like how did somebody go from that to this? What led someone down that path?
Yeah.
And so it's the start of that path.
That's going to be awesome.
Chris is in 7 episodes. Chris is in 3. Taylor leads in this one. Then we roll right from that into True Believer, which is the second book, which Chris Pratt leads. And but I'm fired up. This one is like, because we got to prove to Amazon that this worked. This first one worked. So that gives you a little political capital in order to move things on, maybe in a way that you want, or they're not going to question as much because they see that, this one worked. Okay, we can trust this team going forward. And so I think that's a huge part of it, which is awesome. Great to have a little more. We had a ton of freedom in the first one, but there were a couple of sticking points. And to Amazon's credit, they came down on our side every time.
That's awesome.
But it was like some things were like, okay. Yeah. And we talk about it in the Terminalist podcast that I did with the showrunner David DiGilio and Jared Shaw. So we did that podcast and talk about each episode. But Amazon, to their credit, they came down on our side every time, even if it was a little reluctantly, maybe in a couple parts. But it set up this spinoff and this second season. So
and now you got the freedom.
Yeah, a little more freedom.
So the next season is going to be the Ben Edwards story, and then the season after that, the third season will be the
True Believer.
Chris Pratt. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So it's Well, as soon as we get to the second the writer's strike is over, we'll pick those pencils back up and get right to work where we left off.
That's awesome.
But for me, it gives me a chance to just shift focus and go into book 7 and get right in that. But I want to talk to you about writing process as well, because writing process for me, as you can see outside, there are a lot going on at this house. So I get out of here. I got to get out of here. And for 2 books ago, I started renting places around Park City and just had to get to a place where it was quiet and it wasn't interrupted. And then this last one, I went to a friend's house and in Park City still pretty close, but I get to drop the kids off at school, go there uninterrupted in this place, and then pick the kids up at lacrosse or whatever else they're doing, and bring them home at the end of the day, and then get to work late at night here when it's quiet here. So that's kind of the process. But what was the process for you in writing this? And was it similar to your process as far as doing screenplays? What do you have to have? Do you need uninterrupted quiet time like me? I know you write at your house, you take pictures and post them on social media of where you're working. Is that like right there in the house and you go, and do people leave you alone, or does the fam come in and knock on the door?
They know not to knock.
Really? You have the rules.
They know the rules, man.
Really?
Just like we were talking about offline, when an idea pops in your head or a line of dialogue, comes to you, or a specific action sequence, and you're in it, and somebody you could lose it.
I know.
And it's just like,
I know.
But, interestingly, with my process, a lot of it starts before I even get to the computer, like before page 1, but also like before I get to the computer for the day. Like, when an idea comes to me like Chameleon, I just take notes. Like, so for years, the idea came to me in 2010. I was on deployment downrange in Iraq, and I was doing the human job, human intelligence stuff. And I had to become different characters when I was working with different sources. So I had to become a chameleon. And that's where I titled the chapter in the Transform book years ago. When I wrote it years ago, there's a chapter titled Chameleon. And so a lot of people don't know that was the foundation for this book, but also that's when it all came to me back in 2010. And so from that point on, I would just take notes. I'd never figured I would be in the film and TV business writing screenplays. I never in a million years thought that I would be, writing, fiction thriller books. And so, but for some reason, something told me, just take notes. Just take notes. You never know what'll happen. And so when I finally got to the point where I was like, all right, I want to write this screenplay, because it actually started out as a screenplay first. I had a notepad full of notes. How I want to start the opening sequence. Who are the characters? Even certain lines of dialogue. There were times where I would hear people say things over the years. I'd be like, oh, that would be a cool line of dialogue to put in the script. And so I would drop that into my notepad. And so as far as my writing process, when I got to the outline phase, all I had to do was take this conglomerate of information and start dropping it into the outline. And then when I got to page one, I was ready to go. Now, every single day and night, I get ideas. Like when it's so funny. I wrote most of the book and most of the script away from the computer. Like I'd be on a treadmill, running or whatever the case may be, and an idea I get so many ideas when I'm working out. An idea would come to me, so I just drop it into my, on my phone, into my notepad.
So first, did you have a physical one? Like in Iraq in 2010, did you have a physical notepad where you're writing this stuff down?
It was all digital.
Really?
So it was all digital. I had like what was that? The iPhone
notes or something.
The iPhone notes, and I still interestingly, like this is crazy. So for
you still have them? You can go back.
Chameleon book 3.
Nice.
I'm already on book 2, but Chameleon book 3, I already got notes. So things come to me. Chameleon book 2, the unexpected screenplay, transform screenplay, all of that stuff.
Nice.
When it comes to me, I just drop them in there. And like I said, the day before I'm gonna write chapter 2 or chapter 3, like I'll be working out and ideas will come to me and I'll drop them in my notepad, and then I'll lay down after a day of writing. My brain is still working. You know how it is. A writer's brain is always working. It's always trying to figure out, especially when you write yourself into a corner or into a situation that seems hard to get out of. And it's just like, even when you walk away from the computer, your brain is just still has adapted to still figure out the solution to that problem. And that's when I get the notes, and then I go back to the computer and I write. But for me, as I said, I needed to be quiet. I can't write around people. I hear writers going to coffee shops, and I'm just like, I don't know how you could do that because I'm so easily distracted. And I need a solid 8 hours to write. So and I don't go for I know some people go for page count, or some people go for a chapter, to get to a specific chapter or word count. For me, it's all about time.
Okay.
Like I need 8 hours. At 8 hours, pencils down.
Really? You'll stop?
I'll stop.
Really?
And the help is, my nanny gets off at a specific time. So it's like, I have to stop.
There's no choice. Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't stop. Like I keep going. And that's why this one and it's harder to keep going the older I get. 3 books ago, a couple all-nighters, no big deal. Keep going in the morning and just roll right into getting the kids to school and coming back and keep going and just pound that coffee. And this time I did 3 of those in about a week and a half, and closer to the end, and it hurt me. It was not as easy as it was back in the day. That is for sure.
Oh yeah, I've done those 4 in the morning. Right until 4 in the morning. After I put the kids down, go back to the computer because I got this idea that I just can't put in a notepad. I got to get to the computer and write it, and I'll just be working it until 4 in the morning. Before I know it, it's 4 in the morning. Look at the clock. Holy crap, it's 4 in the morning. I got to get up in 3 hours to get these kids ready for school. And but that's where the magic happens, man. That's what that's what, just like when we were in the teams, man, and just doing, whether it was operating or doing a training workup, and it was like it was a kick in the nuts, but you were happy and you enjoyed it so much that it was just like the time just flew by, and before you knew it, you were halfway through a deployment. So that's kind of how I see writing and storytelling. It's like when you enjoy it, when it's your passion, it just makes time fly by.
I'm gonna take some notes from you because I think I need to do the notepad on the computer thing. Because what I do is I send myself emails to an email that only goes to a separate computer that has an email for the books, and so it's me just nobody else has the email, and I just send myself an idea. I'll put a subject line in there, like book 7, even if I'm working on book 6 or book 5, book 7 line, or book 7 theme, or book 7 title, or books whatever it is, and I send it to myself. But then I'm going through those emails, trying to find that. I'm like, I know I sent myself something, or I hope I sent myself something on this idea, scrolling, but it seems like having it set up so like you do is a better way to go.
The good thing about it too is it's my phone syncs with my laptop. It also syncs with my computer, so I'm not having to go to my phone and text or email something. I could just copy and paste from my computer because the notepad is all sent to the document that I'm working on, whether it's final draft or whether it's a Word document that I'm working on. So it makes it more convenient. That's for sure.
That might be a bridge too far for me. I don't know. Getting things to sync in the I think I just like missed it as far as being able to do all that stuff. I'm always have to call the kids or call somebody. Like, so that's hence me sending the emails to myself. Like not as efficient at all, but trying to get things to sync. And when they don't, like me trying to figure it out or it asking me for a password or something, it's like
hey, a simple solution. Apple ID. Use the same Apple ID in all your devices. If you have an iMac or computer, laptop, AirMac or whatever,
well,
it don't sync all.
The problem with the writing computer is that it's separate, and so I don't want anything else popping up on there. And when I sync, it's like all of a sudden it's like things are popping up, and it's like what? Yeah, and you're like, wait, turn this off, and so I have it totally separate, so there's no distractions writing. It's only, I mean, the only reason it's connected to the internet is for that email that I send to myself, and so it can update Word.
Okay, update Word. Okay,
every now and again I'll Google, but more often than not I'll bring the other computer in, turning everything off on that, and use that as a separate thing to search, and then take it out of the room. I leave my phone in another room. I leave my other computer in another room. So just with me in my writing room is just this computer. And there are definitely more cost-effective ways to do this. I get a new computer for every book.
Oh wow!
And so I start over every time. Like all the things that are on my whatever's on there, I just start over, and I take this one folder that is like book 7 or whatever it's titled, even though when I'm working on book 6, and I'll just drag that one, not drag it. I'll email it to myself or whatever, pull it over, and so I'll have a new computer with just those ideas on it, fresh.
Exactly. It's like we were talking about earlier with sports. Every athlete has their ritual, and it's the same thing with writing. That's a super interesting ritual to have a new computer for every new book or screenplay. That's awesome. Like
there's probably more cost-effective ways to do this for anybody listening. But I take my watch off, I set it down, I have a notepad and a pen, have that right there next to me. Have books for research that I have there, maybe some printouts if there's something that I needed to print out that wasn't in a book. Have that there, and then just the computer and quiet, uninterrupted time, and go.
There you go, man.
Yeah. But so when you're writing, so you're 2010, you're downrange, you're coming up with this idea, and what are you thinking it's going to be for in the future? You just didn't know?
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know. I just felt like, I grew up on James Bond. Loved James Bond as a kid. That was one of the reasons why I was all up for going a human route. I remember we got a taste of it at SQT, and I was like, what is this? We're able to kind of learn tradecraft and run sources in the teams. I didn't know that existed. And then, when I got into the teams and I got exposed to it more, that's when I was just like, this is like what I watch in the movies. This is James Bond. This is Jason Bourne. This is like, not to that level, not in a Hollywood way, but it's neck up. It's intelligence. It's intelligence gathering, and so that's when I was just like, dude, it would be so cool to create a protagonist that has a similar background as mine, from Nigeria, comes to the United States, goes down this path of being in a tier 1 intelligence unit. It's not a military unit, but intelligence unit, and put that out into the world. So the idea came to me, but I never saw it being a book or anything. I just was like, this would be a cool idea. Maybe in the future, it'll turn into something. Maybe it won't. I don't know, but I'm just going to at least take these notes. And so, that's when it started in 2010, and I was able, I went and trained at the NSA Interagency for a TSO course back in, I want to say 2009. And then
so when did they pull you out? Did you already do a deployment, or at what point did they come up to you and say, or did you go up to like leadership, chief or whatever, and say, hey, I'm interested in this TSO ASOT human thing, or like how did that work?
Well, the funny thing was, when I got to the command, I automatically raised my hand. I was like, this is what I wanted. Like, I was already corpsman, so I already had that specialization. I was just like, hey, I want to go to humans. We call it ASO back in the day. The name has changed since then. And the word I got from my chief was like, you can't, because new guys can't go. You have to have some type of, you have to have experience, and then after you have some experience, then you can go and try it out. Go to school, and he also said it was like a tough school to get through, or whatever. And so I was like, Roger that, I'll do what I got to do. And we finished the work up. We finished what you call it, pro dev, and then it was pro dev, and then ULT, and
then advanced, whatever it was after that, getting ready to go.
I forgot the term. And then we got word.
Unit level training. There it is. ULT.
ULT. Yeah. We got word where we were going, and that they would need more level 2s.
Really?
And level 3s.
So before your first deployment?
Yeah. They were like, hey, we'll need more level 2s and level 3s to be able to actually go do this job. And no, none of the guys wanted to volunteer. And my platoon chief at OIC was like, who wants to go? And nobody wanted to volunteer. And part of the reason why was because of the writing that's involved. At Human School, that like a lot of it is writing. You go out and you obviously you have the classroom sessions, and then you go out and you do the source meets and all that other stuff, but then you got to come back and write these super long reports. And that was like that was a message that a lot of guys were getting from guys who went through the course. It revolves around a lot of writing and it sucks. And then when you go downrange, like after you have a source meet, you got it right.
Yeah.
And these reports got to go up the chain of command. And so nobody wanted to do it. So my hand shot up because I had been writing since I was a kid. My mom would make my brother and I read New York Times articles and read books and write reports on them. So I had been exposed to writing, so I didn't mind writing. And so I was just like, hey, I'm in. And my platoon chief got me a waiver, and I was able to go to the course, and then it all started from there. And then,
what'd you think of the course? Was it hard, or was it?
It was tough. It was tough. Yeah, we had a lot of guys. We actually had a lot of guys who failed out of the course. In part because of the writing side of it. It wasn't like physically tough. It was more mentally. And when I say mentally, I don't mean like mental toughness, more intellectually tough. And yeah, but I enjoyed it. There were a bunch of Green Berets that ran the course and former agency guys that ran the course. So it was fun to learn from them. Nice. I remember one class, they showed us like a bunch of scenes from spy games to teach us, to give us a visual exposure as to Tradecraft, and all of that excited me.
Get you fired up.
I loved spy games.
Yeah, it's a great one.
And yeah, it was great. And so, then after I finished that course, we deployed a few months later, and I was doing that job. And then for my second deployment, is when the idea really started to come to me. Okay. And I was really like, dude.
Where'd you go for the first one?
I racked the first one. I racked the second one.
Did you get to use that Tradecraft in the first one? Did you get to use those skills?
Yeah, I got to do some human stuff. Yeah, it was
more
cool.
On the second one though.
More on the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, more on the second one. The second one was like really where I was like, I had like a whole pool of sources.
Oh wow.
And I was in charge of these guys, and I had a level 3. What was he? No, our level 3. Yeah, our level 3 was on the same base as ours, or same fob as ours, and it was just constant work. And in order to get operations, this wasn't the only way, but in order to get DAs, like a big part of it was the source handling, because all the information had to be vetted. You couldn't just have a source come in and give you information and be like, all right, we're going to go hit a target. Like it had to be vetted with SIG, it had to be vetted with, other sources from other places, other documentation. It was a whole process. It wasn't like, some people see in the movies where it's like, oh, there's a bad guy over there. All right, we as SEALs are going to go get this bad guy. Right. We're brainless and we're going to go do this. And a lot goes into it. So that's when I really had the chance to hone my skills as a source handler, and then also as a writer, and really write detailed reports, because those reports would dictate whether we would go on an op or not. And guys want to go op, they want to go do work. And so that's when I really got into it more so on that second pump, and I enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Man, and for people listening, the reason you don't just believe somebody that walks in is because maybe their neighbor stole their goat over there, and guess what? They're going to come tell the Americans that this guy's burying IEDs, and they're like, okay, let's go tell the SEALs they'll go hit that house, type of a thing. So we learned that very early on. That's hence the professionalism of what you're doing with level 1, level 2, and that sort of a thing.
Or worst case scenario, a guy who you think is a source is actually working for Al Qaeda or Jaish Mujahideen or some other group, and they're feeding you bad information and send you into an ambush, to get killed. So it takes a lot of it's not just the academic side of things that you have to learn. You also have to have and I use the word street smarts, to do that job. And growing up in the Bronx, I had to learn how to, you got to learn how to read people. You got to have, you have to learn when somebody's lying to you or not, especially when I was out there selling drugs and running scams and doing all the crazy stuff that I was doing out there. You gotta have some awareness of your surroundings and be heads up. And because if not, you'll get taken advantage of, or worst case scenario, you'll be in the wrong situation and end up getting killed. So I was able to take the street smarts that I learned from growing up in the Bronx, build upon done that, by going through school, and then, learn how to do that more so on my second deployment, first deployment, second deployment, and third deployment, and then really growing from there. So it all served me well.
So first deployment, Iraq, second deployment, back to Iraq, third one, you go to another country where you're using your skills attached to a special mission unit that's going out there trying to apprehend people or capture, kill people that might have intelligence on them that'll lead to other sources that'll allow you to affect the battle space. But that is a pretty unique place to be able to ply the trade.
Yeah. And the crazy thing was, there were no other American forces in the country at the time.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? The only closest American forces were at the embassy.
Yeah.
And so, man.
Did you feel like you were out there?
We were hanging it out there for sure. When we landed in country, there was no base. There was no FOB. We landed on this old abandoned, Yemenese Air Force. I don't even want to call it a base because it was like run down. And then, they had some guys truck down some, what was it? Those barriers who put the sand in.
ESCO barriers. And then we pitched it, set up tents. And that was our first night. Our first night we set up camp and that was it. There was nothing else there. And then from there was some sources that were already there waiting, and then the interpreters that had been in country had already been working with some sources. So I got the guy handed those guys, and from there we would get intelligence, and then obviously the other unit we were working with, they had tons of intelligence because they had more assets, and so we would vet the intelligence against some of my sources. Obviously, their intelligence was much better than ours, and we would do the job. So that's what at that point. And the cool thing was the first two deployments really set me up for that. It really helped prepare me to get to that point, to be in that situation where it's like, hey, you're not going to have a lot of assets. Your writing has to be on point because you're not going to have somebody to be checking over your shoulder every 5 minutes. And what you're doing is going to be, even more so important to get like some important jobs done. So everything prepared me. Going back to the Bronx, everything I learned, my mom having me write, the stuff I learned growing up in the streets, to now going to school, doing the first and second deployment, and now actually getting to the point where I'm almost not on my own completely as a source handler, but like somewhat, So yeah, that is wild. Yeah. So first one, you say you got doing a little bit, kind of putting the toe in the water type thing, figuring it out, taking it from the classroom, applying it to a real world situation. Second one, doing a little more of that. Then third one, going to the country X and being able to do it at that level. Yeah. Were you taking notes over there for this same thing and that from country X?
From the whole time.
Yeah,
the whole time. So from my second deployment, 2010 on. When the idea came to me, that's when I was like topping up. But it was like little things. Like it wasn't always, the majority of it wasn't operational stuff. Yeah. It was more character stuff.
Yeah.
Here's who this character is.
Perfect.
Here's where this character can go, and here are these other characters. And here's this character's backstory. So it was more so backstory for the character than it was, here's this source I met, and I'm gonna take this information from the source I met in the meeting we had and put it into a book. It was more so backstory for the character. But it was from 2010 on is when I started taking those notes. Yeah.
Man. So after that first deployment, did you come back and did you go to another level of schooling as far as human?
No, I stayed at level 2. I went to TSO. I went to TSO.
So you got was that more fun?
Oh yeah, TSO was awesome. Yeah, man. Up in Hollywood, plain clothes, speeding around the Suburbans, tracking people, and placing bugs on the people, breaking into houses and putting bugs in houses, and
that's the deal.
It was awesome, man. It was awesome.
Does anyone ever go to TSO first and then level 2? You always.
Yeah. Well, I know
you got to earn your way in with the writing, and then do the fun stuff.
Yeah. And I heard that they've changed it now, where there's not even. The guys are not even going to ASO anymore,
really?
From what I heard. But yeah, you got to go to ASO, and after ASO, it was TSO, and then you can either go to level 2, you can either go to level 3 after you finish level 2, and then there's TSO, and then there's a bunch of other
ones,
other courses that I went to that was super, super fun.
Oh, nice. You did go to those other ones?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I did one out in New Mexico. Can't mention the name, but it was a fun one. And then went to there was like this SEER one, which was like, it was an advanced SEER one that a lot of the 3-letter agency guys go to, that was up in Washington State.
You did that one too?
Yeah, that was fun too, man. So,
dang.
Yeah, man, it was
So you got the full on, like some guys even went to the farm. Some guys got to that level, but you got to go up to that, almost right to that stage. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I went to the NSA interagency. I was out there for 2 months or a month or something like that in DC. Yeah. So that was part of it. But yeah, that was actually part of TSO. Yeah. Like I think like a month of it or 2 months of it was out there, and then you come back to San Diego for like a couple days, and then you're up in Hollywood doing a big FTX.
That's pretty cool. So for those listening, that's a pretty solid foundation when it comes to the human side of the house. Yeah. That's pretty unique. I mean, some guys did it, but not when you think of SEALs in general, it's not like something that everybody does. Man, that is wild. What from those first couple deployments, or even the third one, like stand out to you think back on? Not even just when you're writing, but life in general as takeaways or impactful moments.
Oh man, there's so many. I got just to pinpoint one. Dang, I'm trying to think of what pops in my head.
Like, is there something you think about kind of more often than not, like a friend or a op or something you learned that you think about more often than just other?
The one thing that always comes to mind is brothers that we lost. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And Charlie, Keating, Pat. I'll never forget when I was, because every time I look at my kids, I'm reminded of Pat Feeks, Charlie Keating, and specifically because they never had a chance to have kids. And I'll never forget when I was in the talk, and I got the word that Pat Feeks got killed, and I mean that shattered our entire team. Helicopter got shot down, and it crushed me. And that was 2012, I believe. That was 2012. We were downrange, and we found out that helicopter got shot down. Two team guys were on it. Pat Feeks and what was the other guy's name? It's my sister platoon. His name will lose me. I'm gonna feel bad after this, but got the word the helicopter, and a whole air crew was killed as well. And I'll never forget the whole rest of the team was in the talk, and we were just like, staring at each other like freaking, pissed, hurt. And then, Extortion 17 had happened the year prior. And it's just like, dang, what's the deal with, operators and helicopters? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we know what happened with the lone survivor situation. The helicopter got shot down. So I'll never forget that moment, and that impacts me today, to this day, as a father, because I'll never forget, I said to myself inwardly, man, they never, of the many things they lost, but the first thing that came to mind is, man, they never had the chance to have a family and grow old, and just, it's like everything stopped there. And we get that. We all get that when we sign up to do the job. And I know that might be a weird thing to come to mind, but that's the one thing that I always think about especially when I see my kids. Yeah. When my kids wake up in the morning, and I have 4 kids now, and it's just like, wow, like I have 4 kids. Like Charlie never had a chance to experience having a family. Mm. Same thing with Pat. Same thing with so many other guys that we know. And it makes me want to be a better father. It makes me want to be a better person. It makes me want to live life to the fullest and put 110% into everything that I do as a writer, as a storyteller, as a director, because, they didn't get, they got a chance to do that. Yeah. And they paid the ultimate sacrifice. Made the ultimate sacrifice, but it stopped for them. And so that's the thing that impacts, that I always come back to, is that moment in the talk when we found out that, Pat got killed. And, obviously we have so many other guys that I know that's passed away, but I would say, because I deployed because I went to Buds with Pat, and I went to Buds with Charlie Keating, and we were super close in class, and we were in the same platoon. We did a platoon together, and so it hit closer to home for me. Yeah. So yeah.
Man, what'd you guys do as a platoon or task unit? after that? You take a knee and then 1 second take a knee and get back up and keep going on with the mission? Or what was that? What did you guys do in the aftermath?
Yeah, it was, took a knee, prayed and, got our bearings. At the same time, if my memory serves me right, the Arab Spring had happened as well. So Benghazi, I want to say Pat died in August, and Benghazi happened in September. So there was a lot of stuff going on between that time anyway, as well. So it was like, hey, we're still in country, we still got a job to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so let's get our bearings. Yeah. We had we had our moment to mourn, but our boys wouldn't want us stumbling over ourselves or sitting down, not doing the job just because they passed on. Their warriors, and every warrior wants their teammates to continue charging forward towards the enemy and getting the job done. So, man. Yeah.
And so you came back from that one, and at what point did you find out that you're going to go to Country X and work with this special mission unit over there?
Yeah, so I got back. I was in my platoon, and we would just doing, did pro dev.
Do you know where you're going, and it just changes, or do you suspect where you're going, or are they kind of like up in the air right now?
I was going to go to Afghanistan.
Okay.
So I was going to go to Afghanistan, and so with my platoon at the time, there were these specific platoons at every team, and the entire platoon were made up of human guys, and they were doing stuff. They were doing like some cool stuff along borders. I'll just leave it at that. And so when we got back from deployment, I was doing workup with Delta Platoon, getting ready to go to Afghanistan. We're doing workup to go to Afghanistan, and then like I want to say the first week of workup, I got called into the CO's office and the CMC and the XO's office because they were like, "Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this specific team thing." Like nice. We had the team 3 had that same team the year for the cycle prior. And so they were like, "Hey, we're going to do it again. And we know you're a human guy. And we know that you enjoy doing it. Would you be open to it?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, like I'm totally in." You know what I mean? Because those guys were like, man, those teams, they were carrying MP7s and they had all like top notch kit. And then, I was hearing the stories and stuff that they were doing. I was just like, I want to do that. And so I got pulled. I was still part of Team 3, but all of the guys from Team 3 got pulled and sent over to SA. It was called SA1 at the time. I know they changed the name to SRT1. And so we were still part of Team 3, but we had to do a dual workup. So part of the workup was the typical workup, land warfare, CQC, all that stuff. But then another part of the workup was this, specialized intelligence type course. And that's when I went to that advanced SEER and went to some of these other courses that I can't really discuss. And right when we were going, we knew where we weren't going to go to country X, the specific country. We were going to go somewhere else and along a specific border and do something like really, really cool. And long story short, the country we were going to be operating out of, this is what, after we finished our workup, it got shut down. So essentially like we couldn't go into that particular country on that base of operations anymore for various political reasons. And so we didn't get disbanded, but we got sent back to our original platoon. So I got sent back to Delta Platoon, and the other guys got sent back to Alpha, whatever platoon that they were at Team 3. And so it was like, all right, going to go to Afghanistan now. But then this Operation X, whatever we're calling it, popped up. And because I had, and it wasn't going to be an all human team. It was going to be an actual platoon. But they needed guys because of the type of stuff we were going to be doing with the ambush and the kind of stuff we talked about offline. We need that actual like platoon, but then have some human guys in that platoon that's going to do the swords handling stuff. And so that popped up, and they was like, "Hey, we're going to move you from Delta to Alpha, and you guys are going to go do this with this unit, and it's gonna be, and I was like, yeah, and so that's kind of how it all came about. Like, and it was fun, man.
That's awesome. That's a really great experience to have over there.
Yeah.
And then you came back from that. And then what did you, when you came back, and when did you start getting this Hollywood bug? And when how does that first movie part come? And what's the path after this third deployment?
So I came back and then, did some shore duty and,
where did you go for shore duty? I think we talked about it before.
What's the motivators? Again, the names have changed a million times.
Yeah.
But
like a dive motivator or something like that.
Running athletes through buds, mini buds, and doing all that kind of marketing jazz stuff.
Okay.
And then my first son was born. And then my second son was born, and at that point I was just like, man, like I knew that after shore duty I was gonna have to go back to a platoon, and so at that point I was just like, you know what, man, I'm gonna just pop smoke. I'm gonna get out. Like I wanted to stay in and do 20, but at that point I was like, and I was doing school at the same time as well. So I had gotten my bachelor's, and then I jumped into a master's program. And my wife's brother is a YPO guy.
We talked about this before. Yeah.
And so he was getting me consulting jobs with his millionaire and billionaire brothers, to do business consulting. And so because of that, I was like, man, let me go get my master's so that way I'm not just speaking from the perspective of a operator. I can add the theory and all the business stuff along with it as well. So I'm in school getting my master's in organizational strategy, and that was January 2016. May of 2016. I'm writing papers, and that's when the phone rings. Hey, you want to work on a Transformers movie?
Now, who called you?
And that was a woman. I can't recall her name, but she worked with Michael Bay.
How did they get your number? Did someone pass it?
Another team guy. Yeah, you know a guy by the name of Kevin Kent?
Of course.
Yeah,
Kevin. I just saw him May 5th because it was I remember because it's Cinco de Mayo, and our other buddy from the I've known for forever, but was also my senior chief, my troop chief, and my last platoon or last task unit. He retired after a long time in the teams, and so Kevin was at the retirement ceremony. We got to go see the new compound, which was crazy down there. So Kevin and I got to hang out for a little bit. And for those listening, he's the guy who throws Jack Ryan out of the helicopter in the latest Jack Ryan in season 3 of Jack Ryan. So Kevin's already working in Hollywood at this point. So he passed her your number and she called you.
She called me.
Shout out to Kevin Kent.
Shout out to Kevin Kent, man. He's a good dude.
He's my first platoon. He came down. Gosh, we jumped into Fort Lewis, first platoon. And Kevin, forgive me if I get this wrong, but at night, combat equipment, jump, and coming down, and I think you're just coming down in static line. For those listening, can't really control those too well. And he landed partially in like a very large hole with one of his legs as he's continuing to go a certain way. And so snap.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
I can relate to that because I broke my ankle on my second static line.
Oh, did you?
Oh,
brutal. So you had to go back through it again? You had to heal up?
I did my next 2 jumps the next day, and then I went to the hospital. So I didn't want to. You
want to go back and do that again?
Yeah, I didn't want to start from scratch, man. So
dang,
I can relate.
That's wild. Well, Kevin passes this lady your number, and she calls you out of the blue, and you're kind of like, what?
Yeah, she hits me up, and I'm at my desk writing papers, and she's like, hey, you want to work on Transformers tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, sure. She's like, send me some pictures. I send her some pictures. She's like, all right, Bay said you're in. So
is this when you're working out and you have to do is this your topless shot? Do you have to say, you don't have to show her that you're in shape?
No. She wanted. She wanted kit.
She wanted kit. Like okay. I knew there was something she wanted. I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was kit, and so that one day turned into 3 weeks, 3 weeks turned into 6 months, and that's when
6 months on Transformers.
On Transformers, started in May. The end of May, and we wrapped in December in San Diego.
No way. Did you put in for leave, or were you already like kind of in a place where
school?
So you were just fully at school.
Yeah, I was out. I was out of the
Navy. You were already out.
I was out of the Navy at this point, and I was in school, just getting using the post 9/11 GI Bill. So I had that. I had like a good cushion of savings, and then I had like some odd, consulting jobs that I was doing with my brother-in-law here and there to help pay the bills. So between that, I was free and clear. Nice. And interestingly, I had started. Here's a crazy thing. Right before I got the phone call, I had started applying for GRS. So I went through the whole application process and everything, and
CIA for people listening.
Yeah, and so I reached out to the guy, and I didn't hear back. like, I think it was like a month before I got the phone call. I didn't hear back. And I had been in constant communication with I don't even know what they call it, a recruiter or whatever he was. And all of a sudden dropped off the map. And so I figured, okay, maybe I didn't qualify. Maybe I said something wrong in the interview or whatever the case may be. And so I got the call to work on Transformers. And then fast forward to September of 2016, I was in London, and I got an email back from a different recruiter, and he was like, "Hey, I'm super sorry. I'm just now catching up to your emails. The guy who was handling your interview process had quit or had a medical condition, and he left, and so I'm now just getting caught up to yours. Dang. Are you still interested?" And at that point, I'm in London working on Transformers, and even before I even got to that point is when I would say, like, during the summer is when I was just like, man, I really like being on a set. I really like storytelling, not the acting side of things, but I really like the idea of being able to create and tell a story from the ground up. And I think I want to pursue this more so than I want to pursue the whole business consulting thing. So when I got that email in September, I was just like, thank you so much, but I've moved on at this point. And then, like I said, December came and we wrapped. And then after that, more opportunities started coming. I did work with Peter Berg on 2 commercials. It was like a Army commercial and an AT&T commercial. Nice. Got to consult and do some stuff on that, and that was really, really fun. And then just things started progressing from there. And before I knew it, I wrote the book Transform. And then after I wrote Transformed is when I was like, dude, I want to teach myself screenwriting, because I was getting hired by Bay and man, so many other, Jakob Verboegen and all these other directors to consult on projects, and they would send me the scripts to read beforehand. And they were even scripts I got from projects that I was like, I don't have the latitude to work on at this moment. And I would read some of these scripts. I was just be like, these are not horribly bad, but they could be better. They could be more authentic. And if this script has gotten picked up to get made, right, I believe that I have the confidence to write something on par, if not better than this. Yeah. And that's when I was like, screw it, I'm gonna teach myself screenwriting. And so after I wrote Transformed and got that, through the publisher, got that edited with the publisher, that's when I was just like, all right, I bought the masterclass, screenwriting masterclass, and I bought from the masterclass, like online, .com or whatever. That masterclass online. Nice. Did the Aaron Sorkin class, did the Shonda Rhimes screenwriting class. It was I think David Mamet had a screenwriting class. Oh, really? You just go to like their websites and you signed up for them and get the stuff. Just did the classes. No kidding. And use YouTube to follow like a bunch of YouTube screenwriting channels, and that's where I would learn my screenwriting and learn how to structure a screenplay and 3-act structure. Because with a book, we have there's so much freedom in a book. Oh yeah, there's so much freedom in Transform. No rules, essentially. Yeah. You can have long, chapters, short chapters. You can have. But what's anybody's thinking in there? Exactly. Backstory, make it up on the fly. It can be as long as you want, as short as you want. Yeah. Total freedom. Yeah. But screenwriting, more rules. For film, 100. Even now with action, they don't want you to write anything more than 110 pages. With comedy, it has to be about 90 pages, and so that's when I had to. That's where I really learned more so how to write script, and I took those lessons and I applied them to Chameleon, which was a screenplay, and I wrote the Chameleon. That was the first script that I wrote, and then. I loved it. I was happy with it. But looking back, after I picked it up like years later to do rewrites after it got picked up to be a film, that's when I was like, oh, this is not as good as I thought it was, because I had a fresh lens to look at it. And so I wrote Chameleon, and I wrote another screenplay called The Last Shall Be First. That almost got picked up by Revelations Entertainment. We're in negotiations with Revelation Entertainment, which is Morgan Freeman's company, because it's a true story about the first group of African Americans to serve in SOF. So I wrote that screenplay, and then I got the project that got me into the WGA was I got hired to adapt Tim Ballard's book Slave Stealers into a limited series. So I got hired so I did that. Wow. Adapt that into a limited series. That's what got me into the WGA, and I wrote, the Unexpected short film, which is awesome. Everybody should look that up and check it out. Thank you, brother. Is it can you find it on YouTube? Where's the best place for them to see it? It's on YouTube, and we were supposed to go into production mid-July. So we got fully funded, we got a full budget. So, a nice budget film because it's an action thriller. We cast a major star a month ago. Nice. And we've been in talks with another major star. I can't say his name just yet. Back and forth talks for a month. And then finally, got to the point where we could submit an offer to him. So the producer submitted an offer to him.
Dang, nice.
Today, actually.
Fantastic.
And you know, so things are moving forward with that. We're crewing up on that. So that short film is now going to be a feature film.
Wow.
And so I wrote that screenplay as well. But backing up to Chameleon, in 2020, I want to say, my agent recommended that I do rewrites on the script, and that's when I read it and I was like, this could be a lot better. And so I did rewrites on the screenplay, and then he took it out to a different production companies because he wanted to attach it, kind of like what you guys did with Terminal List. You got you know, Antoine Fuqua on board as a producer, and you got Chris Pratt on as a producer, and then you guys went to package it and went to a studio. And so my agent wanted to package it with a big producer. So we went to 3 big production companies. We went to a lot of different production companies. 3 of them wanted to pick it up. We went with a really big one. I can't mention their name. I did an option with them, and I went through a year rewrites on the Chameleon. And after the year rewrites, we started looking to attach directors and attach talent. And it was at that time where a buddy of mine, Taylor Moore, I'm not sure if you know him.
Yeah, I know who he is, but I don't know him.
Great dude, really great dude. Former agency guy turned author in the thriller space, has a great thriller series called Downrange Out. And he read the script, and he was like, dude, this can be an awesome book series. And I said to my brother, I said, I'm not trying to write another book right now. I've just finished writing screenplays back to back to back to back. I need a break from writing. And he was like, listen, I think that you should consider this, because now you'll have an IP. A lot of these studios, they want IP. They don't want spec stuff, and you could put some money in your pocket, but you could also expand this universe. And so I was like, all right. So that's when he introduced me to my agent. We talked about offline, and then my agent read the screenplay, and he was like, wow, this could be an awesome book series. And so he's like, want to put a pitch together? And I said, sure. So we put a pitch together. And then he took it out to a bunch of different publishers and created a bidding war, and everybody saw the same thing. It was like, hey, this could be a long-standing, series, kind of like your series. And William Murrow put up the most money for the book franchise, and got to writing, did the deal with them, and got to writing. So
that's unusual to have for fiction, to have be paid first. Usually for fiction, you have to have it done first. And then for nonfiction, you can sell an idea, you can sell a outline, a chapter, that sort of a thing. So you went about it a very unusual way for a thriller.
It was the script. The script was, from all the notes that I had taken over the years, the script coupled with, and what I wanted to do was, my agent wanted me to take the script and turn that into the book, but I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to build the world a little bit more. So book 1 is actually a prequel to the script.
So that's cool.
At the end of book 1 is when
the script takes off.
Is when we introduce the
that's
main
awesome
antagonists.
Very cool.
Of book 2, and some of the characters in the screenplay. Without giving away too much, some of the main characters die in the beginning of the screenplay, and those characters are all laid out, kind of like what you did with Terminal List, where with Ben's character. Now you're going, and he obviously dies at the end of season 1, but now you're going back and doing somewhat of a prequel series where we get to kind of see this character and how he was developed and how he ended up becoming who he was. That's kind of what I did with the book, in order to really expand the universe a little bit more. And so book 2 is actually the screenplay. It's expanding out the screenplay. Dude, so
that is amazing. All things have turned into like one long day for me over the last few years. Did I read this last summer? When did you send this to me?
I sent it to you.
It seems like.
Let's see.
It seems like it must have been last summer.
Man, I can't even. To be honest with you, I can't even remember, brother.
Like it was like a long. As far as your process to get this to publication. And when does it hit shelves?
It hit shelves July 25th.
July 25th for Chameleon. So I think it was a year ago. I think it was around that time when you sent it to me, because then you came on the podcast and we talked about your whole life and Transformed right kind of after that. I think that was around the same time.
It was in September.
Okay.
It was in September of last year. Okay. Or it was either September or October.
Your short film was coming out.
Because a short film was coming out.
Yes, that's a long. So this has been done for a while.
Yeah, it's been done. Man. It's been done. Just been trying to find the right release date. Wow. I was trying to get it released around the time of the Fox show, Special Forces Fox, when I was on that.
So like back January.
January, February timeframe. But they were like, hey, summer was a better slot.
Okay.
So yeah, man, that's when it's dropping, July 25th.
And it's awesome. I'm so glad I got to read an early edition of this, and really cool the way you're going about doing this. But I also want to ask you about your first day on set. Like when you go up, what was your first day on set on Transformers like? Is it because you haven't done it before? Yeah. So you're going up there. Yeah. Kevin Kent tells this lady, give you a call. You take a picture in your kit, and they say, "Hey, come on up," and they give you a location. Is it filming in LA, or where are you filming?
It was out in it was some desert way east of LA. Okay. So it was in LA proper, but way east, like some barren desert. Apparently they shoot like a bunch of movies out there. And I remember getting out. I got there early because I was driving up from San Diego. I didn't want to be late. And so I got there maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours early of my call time. And it was this parking lot in the middle of this desert. Wow. All it was like a parking lot in a desert. And like gradually over the next hour, like cars started showing up, trucks started showing up, trailers started showing up, and before you know it, like this abandoned desert became like a small little village, video village as they call it sometimes, and got costumed up, got kitted up, and Bay came racing into his car, jumps out the car, like, all right, you gonna do this, you gonna do that. And it was fun. It was just, I just did what I was told. One thing I had learned is that making a movie, in my opinion, is a lot like being in the military. Yeah. You have your OIC, who's the director, you have your different departments, and all you gotta really do is what you're told. And if you do what you're told, then you're fine. And I think that light went off in my head. Like first day, because I noticed the same thing first day when I walked on Terminal List. I was like, because especially in an action film, you have an explosives guy. What do we have in the SEAL teams? You got your breacher, who's your explosives guy. Mobility, moving all the cars around. What do we have in the SEAL teams? You have a mobility guy that's been to all the car schools, and his responsibility is getting all that set up and making their gassed up and ready to rock and roll. Armorer, same thing. They got an armorer there on set. Craft food services. You got people got to feed the troops. I looked at Antoine as being like the commanding officer of the team, and then exactly, the CEO, and then Chris Pratt, I looked at him as more he's the troop commander, tactical level type interaction, with everybody, and so it was very similar to the way a SEAL team is set up. That really stood out to me as well. Yeah, man. And did you going up there? Did they send you something first that said like the script or like what you're going to be doing, or you just like? No, I didn't even get the script. I mean, I got like a call. I got a call sheet. I want to say emailed to me for the day, and it had my time. It had who I had to report into and all of that, and then and now that was pretty much it.
Dang, so who's telling you, who's coordinating what you're going to be doing? Is like a stunt coordinator or something saying you guys are going to be laying down fire over here, or you're going to get blown up over here, or what?
It was Bay himself. Yeah, it was like Bay was Bay does a lot of different jobs, like on set. He's there's different types of directors and different styles of directing. You have the hands-on director that's like wants to get into everything, and then you have like the director that just wants to work with the actors and leave all the technical side to DP, the cinematographer, and the first AD and those other guys. And then you have the directors that's all about the technical, all about the visuals and all of that. And they just cast actors who are who can do their job to a T, right? Okay. And so Bay's the type of director where he's a hands-on and everything. Yeah. So even like second unit, like from what I recall, he doesn't really. On Transformers, I don't remember him having like a second unit guy doing a lot of second unit stuff. And if he did, like I remember doing one shot with the second unit director, and he was like, he would put his cell phone over the monitor after the shot was done and text it to Bay to see if Bay would approve it was good with it, and then Bay would be like, oh, thumbs up or thumbs down, do it again. So he's really, really hands on.
That's awesome.
And so I say that to say when I showed up, it was just like Bay came racing. It was like, all right, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it.
What was the first thing you had to do? What was the first day?
So it was a scene with Josh Duhamel and Megatron. So it was a meeting between Josh Duhamel's character, who played like he was like a captain in the army or something like that, and the Megatron Transformer, and I was the guard. I was one of the TRF guys, so Transformer Reaction Force guards who were, attached to Josh Duhamel. So it was me, Josh Duhamel, and another team guy, actually, I want to say. I can't remember who the other team guy was, but it was another team guy that was with us. And then there were like a bunch of lawyers, actors playing lawyers who were trying to negotiate with Josh Duhamel. And Megatron was a funny scene.
Man, dude. Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah. So Transformers, you end up going up for what turns into 6 months?
Yeah. So we started in end of May and wrapped in December.
And you just keep going, driving back and forth from San Diego?
No. So the first day was in LA, and then I was off for like a week. And then a week later, they started shooting in Arizona. And that's when the lady coming back was like, hey, babe, wants to know if you're interested in working in Arizona and Michigan, because he liked your work on that day. I was like, yeah, sure, I'm in. So flew out to Arizona for a week, and then did the filming out there, and then flew from Arizona to Michigan. Was in Michigan for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 week period is when they bumped me to cast. So when the casting director said, hey, babe wants to know if you would be interested in staying on the film and being bumped to cast until we wrap. And so I was like, sure, why not? So I stayed in Michigan until the end of August, and then came home for like a week or two, and then flew to London and was in London for like 2 or 3 weeks, in my memory serves.
Man, he's filmed those all over the place.
Yeah. So it was London, and then went from London to San Diego. It was a long shoot, man. Yeah. It was a long shoot. Well, typically films are not that long. Like the film I'm doing with the Unexpected Redemption film that G-Bass and Gerard Butler are producing. That's a 45-day shoot.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's what we have budgeted and scheduled for 45 days.
Wow.
So I was like, I can't imagine having freaking from May to December. That's a long shoot, man.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
Especially traveling all over the place like that. That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And so what's your next one? So while you're doing this during this 6 months, is this where you're like, you know what? I could do this.
Yeah. That's when I was like, I want to be a storyteller. Like, I don't want to, like, my passion was never to be in front of the camera, period. Like, my passion, as I mentioned earlier, was going to business consulting. But that's when I was like, I want to be a storyteller. I want to be a writer, producer, director, and let's see if it works out. And so every other project to me was my film school, because I didn't have the time to go to film school, and my post 9/11 GI Bill was pretty much ran out, so I couldn't go to film school. And so that's when I started going full on, hey, trying to learn this business, and figure it out. And it's been a hard process, you know what I mean? And there's been a lot of setbacks, a lot of challenges, but everything is, and you know how it is in Hollywood, man. Like, you pitch a project, and then how long does it take from the day somebody says yes to it hitting the screen?
Yeah,
years, man. I remember I was at dinner with Antoine Fuqua. Wow, man, this was like 3-4 years before Terminalist came out, and I remember he had just told me, or maybe it was Matt, you just optioned it to Chris Pratt. That was like 3-4 years before the
January 2018. January 2018.
And so it takes a lot of patience, and that was another thing I learned being in the business. But that's when I was just like, I want to do this full time.
Is that been the toughest part for you? Like, not knowing if something's going to greenlit, having those meetings, hearing people be excited about something, and then not hearing back for a while, and then hearing back, we want to do it, or not hearing back ever. Or like, what's been the toughest part?
In the beginning, it was tough. Because, coming from my background and our background, in the
get it done. Let's go.
It's not just that. It's just like when somebody says they're going to do something, they do it. You know what I mean? And I learned really quickly in the business that when somebody says they're going to do it, chances are you got to divide that by 2.
Interesting.
Sometimes you got to divide it by 10. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so, after I learned that the business is a lot of waiting, a lot of people not keeping their word, a lot of backstabbing, just a lot of, craziness, that's when I didn't get as disappointed, because I learned, okay, this is what the business is. I just have to learn how to navigate around it and just create good content. At the end of the day, I mean, we talked about this offline, but great content always rises to the top. I mean, Terminalist from the beginning was not just great content, great story, great characters. So at some point, it was going to rise to the top and become what it has become now. And so, you know, in learning that, that's why I was just like, as long as I create great content, at some point it's going to rise to the top. And I can get 100 no's. I could have a lot of people, have 100 people tell me, hey, I'm going to do this, and then they don't do it. But at some point, if the content is great, it's going to rise to the top. And that case in point, that was what happened with Transform. You know, initially, you know, why I met with Antoine back then was because Antoine was gonna, you know, we were talking about him picking up the rights to Transform. And it didn't work out, not for any negative reason, it just didn't work out. And so, but fast forward now, the project finally did get picked up, and real money has been put up, not an option, a full-on purchase for the project, and the film is going to go into production hopefully sometime after the writer's strike. But at the end of the day, why is that happening? Because great content at some point is going to rise. Great story, great characters at some point is going to rise to the top, and that's what Hollywood is looking for. They're looking for those unique, great, cool, authentic stories. Yeah. And if they have them, whether it's via a book, whether it's via a screenplay, or even a podcast now, because now podcasts are getting an option and turning IP to become film and TV shows, which is crazy in and of itself. You know, then it'll become what it needs to become.
Oh man, yeah. My experience is a little different in that I think I was insulated from a lot of that, just because of Chris and Antoine. And so when people would ask me, so many people in Hollywood would tell me, "Hey, the odds of this happening, you know, manage my expectations." And I was always like, "Oh, you know, okay." But in my head, I'm always like, "Oh, it's happening because Chris and Antoine said we're going to do this." So, and it did. But I can see, but I heard so many other stories of it not happening for other people, like that sort of thing, who were told by studios or whatever. You know, hey, it was going to happen. This is great. Let's do it. And then nothing. But for me, I think it's just having Chris and Antoine.
Right team.
And another thing, and they're the only two people I wanted to have it at the beginning, from the very beginning, from when I was writing it. And was still in the SEAL teams in December of 2014, putting pen to paper on that first sentence. And I was like, well, I've written a sentence. Chris Pratt should star in this, and Antoine should direct. Like, those are the two people that I wanted. I wanted Antoine to direct. I wanted Chris to star. Boom. And crazy.
That's awesome. And you know, on that note too, as far as like getting stuff made, and another thing I learned is almost like in the SEAL teams, it's like the more specializations you have, more, you know, jobs you have. If you're a corpsman, chances are you're going to go on almost every op. If you're a corpsman, sniper, and breacher, you know, chances are you're definitely going on absolutely every op. The more specializations you add to your resume, the better. And it's kind of like that in Hollywood. You know, if you're an author, that because IP studios are looking for IP because there's already a built-in audience. They can kind of calculate, okay, we're going to at least get this number of people that are going to watch this film or watch this movie, and we're not going to lose too much money. That's one job. That's one wicket you've already checked off the box. And then you add, you know, you could write, you know, you could work in the writer's room. That helps too, you know, and then, you know, do a podcast that helps. You could promote via your podcast,
direct,
produce. It just adds to it, and so, you know, that's one thing I try to tell filmmakers or people trying to get into the business is, you know, it's the more wickets you can add to your resume, the better. You know what I mean?
Actor, writer, producer, director. You're doing all those things.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, now you're not gonna have to. And I learned that with Chameleon. You know, just after, you know, because after I went through the rewrite with this massive mega producer. He's produced the majority of the movies he's produced. The budgets start at $100 million, right? And, you know, even after I went through the rewrites, you know, the next step was getting a director attached, and it was like, oh, this director's not available. Oh, this director would be great. And I've worked with him before, but he's locked up for the next 3 years on another project or this. And it was always scheduling. And you know, thank God in that time is when Taylor Moore was like, hey, let's do this as a book, because that kind of allowed me to take a step back from trying to get the movie made. The option expired with this producer, so all of the rights reverted back to me. And now I could teach myself how to direct and teach myself how to become a better screenwriter and teach myself how to expand a universe in a book so I have a better template. So now when I try to pitch it as a film later, not only do I have a more polished script because the producer gave me great notes, but I also have a book IP. I also know how to direct. And so now, my agents and team, as we're packaging it, we're now able to package it with a director. We don't have to be like, oh, well, let's try and find a director, to attach to this project who's passionate about this project. And so, the more wickets that people can add to their resume, the better,
Because you might be same thing. Director could be tied up, and your actor could be like you might really want to do it. Yeah. But you know what? I got this commitment and this commitment, and if it's like A-list talent, guess what? They're booked up.
Yeah. For years.
Yeah. So it's really interesting how all those pieces have to come together. Yeah. And like there's a character in my books, Rafe Hastings, who is like a fan favorite character. Yeah. And we couldn't get somebody. Couldn't get the right person for and he's just in the book, he's at the end of the book, but a very important character there and moving forward. Yeah. But we turned it into just a note. So in the show, it's a note that he gets on that boat at the end. Okay, so we turned that character into a note, but in the script and the outlines, it was a character that was going to physically meet them. But we couldn't. We knew that it was such an important character, but we didn't know if we were going to have a second season, third, like that sort of a thing yet. So you couldn't pull in the right person. So it's interesting how all those things kind of have to go together. It's a really cool process, and it's cool doing both because this one person right here, that's you. And for me, same thing. It's just me, but screenwriting and all of that rest of that, that's a team effort. And you're doing all the things you have to do in any team to build something, to create a product, whatever that product might be. And there's the leadership side of it. There's the political capital side of it. There's all these things you can't control. And then there's things that you can, and you have to all come together to create the best product you possibly can as a team. So really different. And there's the rules like you talked about in screenwriting. There are things, and there's budgets, and there's page counts, because you can't just go forever. You have a certain number of episodes. You have a time limit, and that doesn't exist in the novels. Like this last one, it just kept going and going. So I added about 2 months probably to my writing process just because it's all about the story. And I don't get to 100,000 words and then be like, time to wrap this up. It kept going. And I blasted right by 100,000, 120,000. It was crept up on 139,000 words.
That's a good number too. But that's what people want too. Because it's all about the story. It's all about the story. What did Robert Ebert say? He said that no good movie is long enough and no bad movie is short enough.
Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting.
So it's like, it's all about, the story.
Yeah.
And
gotta honor the story.
Takes you to 139 words.
That's how it goes.
And readers are smart. Readers, whether it's a producer reading a screenplay to decide as to whether he or she is going to jump on board, or whether it's an audience, fans reading a book, they know, they can sense when the story gets capped early for the sake of, the publisher wanting the 80 to 90,000 word count because their statistics show that people don't, like reading past 80 to 90,000. Readers are smart enough to realize that.
Yeah, you see it in Amazon reviews. And but there's no constraints, which is great. I love having 100% complete creative control with the novels. It can be as long as for me, it's all about that story. It's not like, what's going to work for this audience, or do I have to worry about alienating an audience over here? None of that. I never waste bandwidth on that at all. Of that, my time, energy, and effort, all my heart and soul goes into every word to honor that story and make it the best story it can possibly be, with no other considerations, which I love.
That's what it's about.
And then screenwriting side of the house, once again, team effort. There's all sorts of things happening. Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal Credit Union is here to help military members and their families tackle home ownership during this high rate market. With their new no refi rate drop option, if you buy your next home now and mortgage rates drop later, you could lower your rate by paying a low fee instead of refinancing and paying thousands in closing costs. They offer mortgage options with zero down payment, so you don't need to wait years to save. Also, planning any travel this summer? Navy Federal Flagship Credit Card treats members to our highest rewards and premium benefits. Flagship makes it easy to rack up rewards with higher points on travel, including everything from tolls to terminals. Earn a bonus 40,000 points when you spend 4,000 in the first 90 days, plus enjoy a free year of Amazon Prime. At Navy Federal, our members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Federally insured by NCUA, membership required, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply, loans subject to approval and eligibility requirements. Open to the armed forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. As of 5/1/2023, the rates for flagship are 14.74% to 18%. Based on credit worthiness. ATM fees for cash advances are up to $1 at non-Navy Federal ATMs, a $49 annual fee for Visa Signature Flagship Rewards. NavyFederal.org.
Let me ask you this. Because we talk about, political capital and growing that. And now you have more freedom with Terminal List Season 2 and the spinoff and all that because of the success of Season 1. Did you find in the beginning with the first book, did you find where there were restrictions, there were limits put on you in the sense that, hey, the word count has to be 80 to 90,000 words, and then as the success came, the TV show came, which helped with book sales and all that stuff, then you had more. Now you could do 139.
Yeah, not on the writing side of the house, not on the publishing side. I always had 100% complete creative control the whole time. Yeah. My publisher, editor, Emily Bessler at Emily Bessler Books, which is an imprint of Atria, Simon & Schuster. Yeah. 100% complete creative control from the beginning. That's awesome. Like her notes to me are more along the lines of, hey, explain this weapon system for someone who doesn't know what an XG95 is or whatever, who wasn't in the military. And I just made those up for anyone who's going to don't need to check because it doesn't exist. But like explain this thing for someone who doesn't just know what this is. Like it's hey, explain this a little more for someone who hasn't read the previous 5 books. Like those are the type of notes that I get from my editor, but never, you might want to change this, or can you shorten this, or can you lengthen this, or this is what we're seeing works. Can you do that? Zero. It's not, none of that is a consideration from my agent, from my publisher, or from anyone.
And that was from book one.
From book one.
That's awesome.
The whole time.
That's awesome.
The whole time.
That's awesome.
And then on the screenwriting side of the house, I got so lucky that Antoine and Chris wanted me involved in all of it. Yeah. And then that they picked this amazing showrunner, David DiGilio,
he's awesome,
who also wanted to mentor me along, and he wanted that authenticity piece in it, and recognizing how important that was going to be to the story. So essentially I was mentored along through this whole process from option, then showrunner, and then putting the writer's room together. Well, first writing that pilot episode, which really David DiGilio wrote, and I just advised on and learned from. I was a sponge on that. And then he took that with Chris and Antoine, took that out, got it to Amazon, picked it up, now the writer's room. And so they hire those writers. And so I got to see that process, and then see how the writers, what they bring to it from their personal experience and background, and how they adapt it. And I always knew there was going to be changes, so I went into it knowing there are going to be changes, knowing that First Blood, the book, written by David Morrell in 1972, very different than the Sylvester Stallone movie, but both fantastic. And so I always went into it knowing, and just thrilled that someone wanted to make this. And me wanting to learn, me wanting to being a student and wanting to learn this. And so I got extremely lucky to be involved in every step of that process, which was really cool. So, and now that's paying off, because then you add value. And just like in any industry, people talk, and it's opened other doors. Because people say, hey, this guy, he really added this there. He's not just a name up there, an executive producer. He did this, this, and this. And just people here in Hollywood, just like they would in the business world, finance, whatever it is, they hear about you, and then doors open, and you gotta go from there. So there's a bunch of projects on the horizon that that wouldn't have been opened to me, wouldn't have been available to me, had David DiGilio and Chris and Antoine not brought me into this process and made me a part of this team from the get-go. So I feel extremely, extremely fortunate. But it's a slim, experience. That's just one show, and you've had all these shows now. So what did Transformers lead to? You've been in a bunch of things now.
Yeah, man. So Transformers led to just some commercial work, and then from there led to I worked on 6 Underground with Bay. I didn't do any acting on it. That was all consulting. And then 6 Underground, man, I worked on SEAL Team. That was kind of how when I met Antoine around that time, when I did some work on SEAL Team with CBS, now it's Paramount Plus. And then from there jumped to Ambulance to Ambulance with Bay, and did what else? There's so much floating in my head. Did a plane movie.
Yeah.
That was a fun one to work on. That was when I met Gerard Butler and G-Bass, and kind of we built our relationship, and from there they signed on to produce the Unexpected Redemption.
Like, these are big films. This is not some like you're just trying to get something off the ground. I mean, these are huge actors, huge directors, huge films, gigantic budgets.
Yeah, big budgets.
I mean, that's insane. All these experiences that you've had are pretty incredible.
Yeah, man. And like I said, it's been my film school.
Yeah.
It's been my film school. You learn everything about how to build relationships, when to talk, when to keep your mouth shut, everything in between that's integral to making a film, to telling a really good story at a high level. And I think that's the blessing in all of this. My first project was like $120 million film. So a lot of the projects that I've worked on have all been, aside from the projects that I've done, I've produced and directed the short films and other stuff that I've done on the writing side, they've all been like really big budget films. So I've been able to learn at a really, really high level. And, Bay has really started taking me on this wing and on 6 Underground, and, just saying, hey, Remi, how would you shoot the scene? Like, what do you think action-wise we should do here?
Nice.
And that's when the growth as a filmmaker started, when to kind of not started, but that's when it went up exponentially, was when I got the opportunity to kind of be like, oh, I would shift this person over here, I would do this, or have this guy move this gun, kind of like this, like, cool, let's do it.
Nice.
So and then working on Terminalist was awesome. It was such fun, shooting up in the desert mountains of Calabasas, and seeing work. I can't remember the director's name, or I worked with one, but he was a really, really good dude, and just all the other guys, and a lot. I mean, I like how you guys were intentional about casting veterans, whether it was actors who had prior service, or guys who never acted but have a passion for it, and that added to that authenticity. So it was cool to get back into it with some of the guys, the FBI guy team that I was a part of. They were all Nate, was awesome.
Nate
as well.
Boyer,
he's a great dude. He's a director as well. He directed a project, MVP.
Came out this last year.
So it's cool to meet other veterans who are crushing it in the film and TV business, and in the book world, and then giving a helping hand, like you've been a tremendous blessing to me, and you being at the top, you got the guys in our community who are at the top, like you're at the top as it relates to being an author and representing the community. Jocko podcasting, Sean Ryan podcasting, all these different guys. There's so many guys we know in business, and you're at the top, and even at being at the top, you've always been a tremendous blessing to me, allowing me to be a part of Terminalist, writing a blurb for the book, just
right there, I meant it. I mean, that's awesome. That's on target, scores a direct hit. Bam, it, man. But that it was really cool in the terminal. It was like a reunion. That first episode, where it was a bunch of team guys playing team guys, and then we had Patrick Schwarzenegger in there, and so I think him and Chris were the only two guys that weren't prior military. We had a Marine in there, a bunch of SEALs, and so that was really cool, like a reunion.
Justin Garza, AJ,
we had all these guys in there, AJ, and a lot of those guys I hadn't seen in years. And we had a blast working together on it. So that was important for us to bring as many veterans as we could in. And there's also the practical side of the house. You don't have to worry about them like sweeping each other, and like catching it. Oh, we had this perfect scene, but so-and-so, this actor has his gun pointed at his buddy's head. What's going on over there? Like we didn't have to worry about that stuff, because they're going to move in a way that just flows and is natural. And they're going to pick up these positions without even having to be told what to do. They're going to naturally go into a room and do their thing. So that was really cool. That was a blast. And then we had Max Adams, former Army Ranger, who's writing on it, and now he's an executive producer on this one as well. Awesome. And Jared Shaw, also executive producer on this next one, writing on this next one. That's awesome. And he acted as Boozer in the series.
He crushed it. Are you did you get writing like as far as like a WGA? Like
I think after this one I get it. Like you said, you had to do a couple things before you got in. So I think it's after this one. I think, because I'm writing the finale to both this one and True Believer.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So
and those I'll tell you what, man, those WGA benefits are huge. And then I've heard, it's like even the retirement. Like you can get I think it's like 3 points vets you, you know, so if you get a certain amount of points. So that's all huge, you know. And it's cool. It's like being in WGA is almost like being, I don't want to equate it to being in the SEAL team, but it's like being in this community, because here in the teams you have like, you know, only a selected few people who can get into the teams and do the job, but then you also have only a selected few people that can get into the WGA. Yeah. You know, it's easier to get, from what I heard the statistics, it's like it's easier to get drafted into the MLB than it is to get into the WGA, because it's so hard to get those points and stay and work consistently. But it's a cool little community, you know, just a writer community, you know, because I can identify with you in ways where, you know, I can't identify with other people who are not writers, because we have that, you know, we know what it is to sit at the computer,
sit there and bleed.
Yeah. It's where we get our high from, though.
Yeah, no, I love every part of the process. Just like I love every part of the process of writing, from coming up with the theme, the title, my outline, my one-page executive summary, the narrative, and going back and then editing that, and going back and forth with Emily Bessler, my editor at Simon & Schuster, and then the lead up to publication and the marketing. Same thing with the show, like being a part of it from day one. I love every part of that process. That's awesome. And even the parts that, like, oh, okay, we're not going to have this character in this show because there's just not enough time. Oh, I really liked that scene. Or, hey, I really like this one scene at the end. Well, I guess it's not going to fit in. It doesn't work now because of these other changes. You know what? And that's okay. It's just kind of how it is. And you're all coming together as this team to build these scripts and then bring it to the next level. But it's like you said, it's like knowing when to like draw that line in the sand and when not to. So we had something at the end of the show. I think we talk about it on the Terminal List podcast, but there was a different ending, and me and Chris and Antoine got together and talked about it, and the showrunner, and I was like, can't end that way. We're going to lose everyone. And so we got together and figured out like how to get it the ending that we wanted. And so that was cool. But other things like there's this, and you talked earlier about writing yourself into a corner. I kind of like that because it's that challenge. And so I did it a couple times. I did it with in the book, Katie I have det cord wrapped around her head, and this other character's over here is going to blow her head off. And it really encapsulated the entire theme of revenge without constraint, because James Reese, my protagonist, kills this guy, and he thought that if he did that the reader thinks that is going to blow off Katie's head. And so it was the whole theme is encapsulated right there. And then a couple pages later, I have her snap out of this trance as she's about to fly off. And she's like, how did you know that he wasn't going to blow my head off? And he looks at her and says, I didn't. And then he turns and runs off. And but that was writing yourself into a corner, because when I wrote that, I didn't know. I knew she was going to be coming back, and they were going to come back together down the line. But I hadn't figured out how. Like, once you do that, we say that to somebody, like, I didn't care if you lived or died. Like, how do you figure that out? And I didn't know. And so that's why Katie's hardly in the second book, because I hadn't figured it out yet. So she's really not in the book, True Believer. And then by the time I got to Savage Son, I'm like, man, I really got to figure this out. And so I did, and I figured it out in a creative way that I really like, and brought them back together and worked going forward. So I do like writing myself into corners. The end of the last book ends on more of a cliffhanger, but I knew that gives me a direction that I have to figure out, or this letter. I have this letter in the safe deposit box that when I wrote it at the end of the third book, I didn't really know what was in it. So I had to figure that out over the last couple books. And now for this one, I figured it out. But sometimes it just takes a little time.
And you know what it also takes? What I love is it also takes sometimes stepping away as an author or writer, whether it's a script or book, and saying, okay, character, you tell me what the line of dialogue is going to be, or you tell me what it is that you would do, because, you know, based off of your patterns, or what it is that you would say. And I think that, you know, when we get into, at least for myself, when I get into that corner and it's hard to get out, what I've learned to fall back on is the character.
The characters tell you.
And that's what strengthens the story, is when it's the character driving it. So, because I know for me, sometimes I could have a character do something that's out of character, no pun intended, you know, and so essentially the corner helps realign me to get the character back to where that character would be or say or act or so on and so forth.
That's interesting you say that, because that's what I did. I had for the Katie scenario, I had her figure it out, and she comes up with this solution, or she puts him in this position where he has to answer, and she knows it's going to be the truth because of what I do, or like because of the scenario that I put them in together. So that was really cool. But that was one of those ones where I was like, it's not in the book. We tried to incorporate it into episode 5, where James Reese sees her and he's about to let off this EFP, this IED, improvised explosive device, and he sees her and she's kind of close to it, but it wasn't exactly the same. But that's where we tried to honor like the spirit of the story. And keep it grounded in the spirit of the story, even though it was different. But you really had to be looking. You really had to be paying attention. But it wasn't exactly. That was one of those ones. I'm like, hey, you know, it fit in the book. It's not fitting in here. There's no way to force it really into this. So you know, you just gotta kind of just continue to go forward. But when you get to something like the end, and you know it's not going to work, that's when you got to come together and come together as this team and figure out how to make it work in a way that makes sense for the audience and for the story. And for the story. 100%. But I love every part of that process. But man, I want to ask you a little bit more about being on the set of some of these huge films, like with Gerard Butler, and you're on the film or in Ambulance. Like what's it like being on these huge? I mean, you started off with Transformers, so you started off here, and you started off with these huge blockbusters. But what are some of those experiences that you've taken away as kind of ones you think about, like, man, on that with Gerard Butler in this situation, or an Ambulance with this when Michael Bay said that, or like what are some of those cool experiences that you think about?
I mean, the one that I kind of touched on already was when we were on 6 Underground, and there was an assassination scene in this hotel room, and Bay kind of gave me some latitude to kind of, you know, hey, what would you do? That was huge. I think that's when I was like, I'm gonna do this full time. To be able to have that kind of approval from Bay to say something, you know, in that capacity, and kind of be a little minor filmmaker in that moment. That was huge for me.
Adding value.
Yeah, 100%. And let's say Plane was awesome. I would say a huge moment for me on Plane was when my kids came to set.
Nice.
And my oldest son is dyslexic, and he struggles. He struggles really, really bad. And but he loves movies. He loves movies. And the DP, there was a scene that was being shot where the camera kind of booms up and arcs around the plane, and it just was the ending sequence, and it was a really great shot. And the DP allowed my son to kind of like, he put his hand on my son's hand and allowed him to move the camera.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was really impactful for me, because, you know, I don't know how my son moving forward from an educational standpoint. You know, we've talked to therapists and the SEAL Foundations, SEAL Kids, which is a foundation that's helped my son get some, you know, therapy with his dyslexia and get some better education as well. And the reoccurring theme is, you know, will he go to college? Will he be able to excel in college? Possibly. But what if college is not his path? What if, you know, but film, he loves film. And so I'm kind of tied all together, because I know I'm creating a soup sandwich here, but essentially, you know, to have put myself in a position where I could be on a movie set and be making movies has now put my son in a position where he can possibly discover his path. And that moment when the DP put my son on the handle that controls the camera booming up and allowed him to help get that shot, you know, it impacted me, because that wouldn't have happened if I didn't do what I did and pursued this path. And who knows, that may end up being my son's path in the future, because he loves film and he loves storytelling. So that, I would say that's probably one of the other most impactful moments in my life. And then being on the sets of, you know, the Unexpected short film. I mean, just to be able to call action the first time I was.
That's all you. I mean, you got. Yeah. How did that feel to have all that on your shoulders? Did you love it?
To be able to take all of what I've learned from working with these different directors and filmmakers, and now be able to to apply it. And, you know, you can't put a freaking price tag on that, man. You can't put a price tag on on writing a screenplay and then having these visions of what everything's going to look like, and then either elevating that vision, or either having that vision play out on camera with actors,
right,
or even better, having them elevate the writing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And breathe it into life. Breathe this fictitious world into life. And I'll never forget when I was shooting the scene for The Unexpected, when the girl was getting her heart extracted. And it was so moving. We were shooting on this farm in Kansas City, and the neighbors had told us, because we had like a whole film crew and vehicles and all that. Like, I went all out. I spent a lot of money on that thing, and so they came by and I allowed them to watch into the monitor and to see her reaction when her heart is getting, when she's getting cut open with no pain meds. And this girl, her performance was just phenomenal. The way she was just screaming and crying and tearing. I mean, she was tearing up. To see the reaction of the neighbors was just wow. Yeah. It's like I saw this in my mind, and now they're seeing what was in my mind on a screen. And to even go further off the set, I've gotten messages on the YouTube channel from people who say, I had to stop watching 14 minutes in. Or this is powerful. This is too real.
Yeah, it's powerful.
And I'm like, I did my job.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch the rest of it. I did my job. You were the story impacted you in such a way that you had to cut it off, which means that it read as real to you. Yeah. And that's what filmmaking is taking something that's fictitious and making it real, making the viewer believe that it is actually real. It is actually happening. Yeah. And so, that was another, and I get those messages, often, maybe once a week, like, not that I cut it off, I almost cut it off. I almost couldn't make it to the end, or I couldn't make it to the end because of how raw and real it reads. Yeah. And it saddens me that this is what the people say. It saddens me that this actually happens, and that's why I wanted that film to be raw and real, because I wanted people to realize that there are people right now. And I wrote this line in the Unexpected Redemption film that it's going into production later this year, when one of the characters doesn't want to go down this path of burning down this organ harvesting ring. I wrote this line of dialogue that says, listen, we can go back to our everyday lives right now, but just realize that at this very moment, somebody's on the operating table getting their organs extracted. At this very moment, a child is being raped, and being sold for sex at this very moment. So we can make the decision to go back to our everyday life that's protected and comfortable, but just know that these things are happening. And going back to filmmaking, I think that's what really captured me working on Transformers and really showed me my path, because as a SEAL, like, I know we all did the job not so that we could be glamorized as SEALs. We all did the job because we wanted to serve. We wanted to give back. We wanted to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And when we leave the military, for all of us, I know that's still a part of us. We still feel this need to serve and give back and do something. And for me, that's what filmmaking is. It's a tool to be able to serve. It's a tool to be able to tell stories that's going to inspire people, that's going to educate people on the realities of human trafficking, the realities of sex trafficking, organ harvesting, or motivate people to do something different in life so that they could be better in life. And so, that's when people respond to me and say things like, hey, this film has moved me to do something to get in the fight against human trafficking, then I feel like I have served and I am serving my purpose, and so I know that was a long answer, but those are probably the most impactful moments of being a filmmaker and a storyteller, is getting the nod from Bay. Hey, you want to kind of make a decision on this scene, and then watching my son control a camera and thinking in my mind, can this be his path, and this can potentially be his path because I chose this as my path, and then seeing and hearing people's reactions to the content and the stories that I tell, and how it's impacted them to make a a difference in this world.
Yeah, man, people should definitely check it. How long is that film again? I watched it last year when it came out.
Yeah, it's 32 minutes.
32 minutes. 32 minutes, so definitely check out 32 minutes, and it is so powerful. It is awesome. So check that out for sure.
And the film is going to be heavier, man. It's heavier. Like it's so funny, and not funny, but it's so cool because the producers, Alan Siegel and Gerard, but even Mike Grabowski, he's one of the producers of the film /finance. He produced Hotel Mumbai, and he's produced a bunch of films with Thunder Road. When we had a meeting after they read the script, they were just like, we want to keep it raw and real.
Yeah.
We want it to be like The Short, but obviously dial up the production value and dial up the acting with some, more professional actors. But we want that raw, real feeling because that's what it's about right there. And then,
yeah, you touched on something also that I really liked about this. And I don't know if it's like this on every production or not, but when you have that script. And you're creating it essentially, a nice air conditioned room somewhere. You got your team together and it's working together. Look at this. And then you get out there and you look at it, you're like, oh, wait a sec, this is not going to work exactly how we thought back in that nice air conditioned room. Or, hey, you know what? This actor's brought to these roles in episodes 1, 2, and 3, and now we're on episode 4, and this line is not ringing true anymore because of what they brought with their performances. And so you have to adapt. So I really like that, just like in the real world in SEAL teams when you're down there in downrange, and you're adapting, and the enemy's adapting, and you in turn are adapting to them, and you're looking for gaps in their defenses, and you're capitalizing on momentum and their environmental factors that you can't control when you're back there doing some the planning, but all those things come into play, and same thing on the set. You have that script, and you know what, you get there. And so I liked how adaptive the entire team was out there. Or Chris would come up and say, hey, this isn't, I don't like this line anymore, or whatever else. Like, this isn't, not sure this is working anymore. What do you guys think? And we'd be like, yeah, that's not really working anymore. Let's change that up, or get rid of it, or whatever it was. And that was really cool to be able to adapt. And without that adaptability, if you don't, then you have this like 1, 2, 3, and then someone's watched episode 4 and it's like, what on earth? That doesn't make any sense. And it might have a year ago in the writer's room, but not anymore. Not when you're on set after you've filmed these other episodes, and then the scripts have morphed, or all those sorts of things. So I really like how adaptive you have to be in that environment to continue to create this product and keep it moving for 6 months of production or whatever you're doing of filming.
It keeps you on your toes, man. It keeps you on your toes, man.
Yeah, no, I love that part. That part. And have everybody know that that's okay to do that is awesome. That's what we want. We want to adapt, and we want to make this thing the best it can possibly be. But for Chameleon, you did a short film that you just did. So how long is that going to be? Are you editing it right now? And when is that coming out?
Yeah, so we're in post right now on it. It's going to be about 9 to 10 minutes. It's so cool the way it came about. There's a podcaster / they're podcasters, YouTubers called Dirty Civilian. Awesome dudes. They're based out of Tennessee, and their goal is to they've never served in the military, so their goal is to kind of educate civilians on tactics, survival, so that they're prepared in the case something crazy happens in the country. They're not having to just run to the military base. They're prepared to survive and take care of their families. And so these guys reached out to me and just like, hey, dude, we see that you got Chameleon coming out and you're a frogman. Like, would you be open to coming on our podcast and then doing a video, maybe about you shooting, talking about how you train actors or prep actors for a film? And I was like, sure. And then like a day later, it morphed into, how about we take a chapter from your book and we shoot a film? And I pitched that idea to them, and they were like, we are 100% in. Nice. And so they picked the chapter. Okay. And then they told me, and then I wrote the script in like 2 days. And it was an epic action-packed chapter, which I was kind of concerned about because I was like, what kind of resources we're gonna have? But we got out there. Those guys, I mean, they have this massive shooting range, kill house, tons of property. Then they have tons of farmland, and so we shot it. I wrote it and directed it. And we shot the majority of it in Tennessee, and that was 2 weeks ago, or not. last week actually, and then I did some pickup shots in San Diego because we needed a beach. There are no beaches in Nashville, Tennessee, to be able to do a cool like Frogman type insert. So we did some insert shots and some close up shots in Nashville, Tennessee. Got some fake sand and put it down on a farm and along a tree line, and then we shot the rest in California. And so that's in post production now. I got some of the same team that worked on the post production side of things. What the Unexpected are doing it, so I got the same colorist, so the visuals are going to be awesome. And yeah, man, it's going to be epic. It's one of those films that, you know, it's so cool how it all transpired, because as I mentioned, you know, it started out as a film. So to have it start out as a film, turn into a book, and then now, you know, be somewhat a part of it, a film, it's pretty cool. And it all ends on a cliffhanger. And at the end, we're going to say, you know, I haven't really worked it all out yet, but it's going to say, you know, it ends on a cliffhanger. It says to be continued.
Nice. Get the book.
Get the book. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're gonna have it done. The goal is to have it done by July 18th to release it a week before the book releases, which is July 25th. So that way you kind of, you know, push people to be like, all right, I gotta get this book to see how they got to this point in the in the film, and how it's gonna all end up.
Man, so, awesome. And this is it right here, Chameleon, first one, and you're working on the second one.
Yep, working
right
on
now.
The second one, which is an adaptation of the screenplay. And yeah, man. And hopefully, you know, if the screenplay goes into production, which probably won't, because I got to do Unexpected Redemption, and then I'm kind of working on, me and my team are going to negotiate with the studio for me to direct Transform. So that film won't be a few years down the line, the Chameleon. And so in the case that does happen, you know, the screenplay that's already done will be what happens first. And so we'll almost do it kind of like Star Wars, where we have episode, you know, 4, 5, and 6 come out first, and then go back to the beginning, almost something similar to what you guys are doing with the Terminalist prequel series. So. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Yeah. So this podcast will drop right when this book hits.
Thank you, brother.
So everybody go check out Chameleon right here. And man, awesome. Congratulations on all you have going on.
Thank you,
Did I miss anything you have going on? You have so much going on. I'm worried I missed a bunch of things, because you are juggling a ton of different things, and it's awesome to see you crushing it in Hollywood. And I think it's great for people that are in the military, or not even in the military, anybody who's like aspiring to like, or thinking about writing, or thinking about directing, or thinking about acting, and seeing that it's possible.
Yes,
I think a lot of people get discouraged along the way because someone tells them the odds and they believe it.
Yes.
And they go, oh yeah, I guess I'll just go and do whatever.
Yeah.
That's too hard. That's not, you know, you're just always going to be looking up there, or wishing, or wondering, or you know, whatever. Then get later in life and you think, man, if only I'd given it a shot back in the day. So to have a podcast where you talk about it and people can listen, and some kid in high school is listening to this and is like, oh man, I always wanted to serve my country, but I also want to be in film. Look, this guy did it. You know, and so that's inspiring for a lot of people. And you didn't have this sort of a platform for people to be able to see that it's possible. They could see it, but you didn't even know a lot of these. Like, let's say the 50s, 60s, 70s. A lot of those directors, actors, producers. Guess what? They were in World War II. And you don't know that, because all you're seeing is a name at the end of a movie that says directed by, or you're seeing, you know, the opening credits star in there. But you don't know. Now you can look up, and now people can hear us on a podcast, and now they know that you were in the military. They know you're in the SEAL teams. They know you did all these things. They know you have a book. They know you were on these different sets, and now you have this X, Y, or Z, and it's inspiring along the way. So you're not just seeing the end product. You're hearing about the journey.
The beginning.
And I think that's really cool.
That's awesome. Thank you, brother. And I'm proud of you and everything you do, and thank you for allowing me to jump on your platform to share. And let's keep crushing it, man. And telling authentic and cool stories that are gonna inspire, motivate, and educate the masses. Because I know for a fact you're doing it, and hopefully Chameleon book could do it too. Instead of just making it it's an espionage thriller action, but I also tried it's somewhat of a political thriller as well. Because one thing I wanted to try and do in the book was I created this underlying theme of political unity, you know, and how a lot of division in this country is generated from the top. because the top needs us to be divided.
Exactly. Who benefits?
Yeah, the top benefits. They need us to be divided, and so it's more. It's kind of like how with the unexpected. I tried to make that film all about organ harvesting, and that's ostensibly about organ harvesting and to drive that message. There's an undercurrent in the Chameleon about, hey, let's try to come together. Let's realize, that our enemies is sometimes at the top, and our enemy is trying to keep us. It's not our neighbor. And so hopefully people get that message as well.
Yeah, I think recognizing that is kind of a first step towards being able to listen to somebody else or to not necessarily just put them in the enemy pile because of a tweet or something like that. Exactly. But man, I'm hoping we get to work together again on something in the future. I'm sure we will as well. And Chameleon, by the time this drops, it'll be out, but July 25th on shelves. Pick it up and check out all the films and everything else you have going on.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming up.
Appreciate you. God bless, brother.
Take care.
Yes, sir.
This is Jack Carr, and I want to talk to you about Schnee's boots. If you followed me for a while, you know what a big fan I am. This pair right here is the same pair that I've been wearing for over a decade now, and these are the ones that I wear when I want to come out heavier than I went in on a backcountry hunt. So love these things. They are absolutely awesome. And I have a bunch of different kinds of boots. They're pack boots. And go check them out at schnees.com, SCHNEES.com. Schnee's mountain boots are handmade in their Italian factory located in the foothills of the Italian Alps. Each boot is made from the absolute highest quality materials available, from the fine leathers to heavy-duty hardware and Vibram outsoles. They only sell direct to you without the middleman markup. This means they can put higher quality materials and craftsmanship in every boot, so you get more boot for your money. They are also all backed by Schnee's industry-leading customer service and support. When you call them, you'll talk to someone right there in Montana that actually wears the boots. So be sure and give them a call. They have a lot of options out there. Find the right boot for you. Definitely check them out. If you head over to schnees.com, SCHNEES.com, you can score up to 30% off your new pair of mountain boots. You heard that right. You can save 30% off any pair of regularly priced Schnee's mountain boots. Use promo code JACK23, JACK23. That's schnees.com, SCHNEES.com. JACK23 is the promo code. Enjoy those boots. Black Rifle Coffee Company. You can help Black Rifle Coffee raise $1 million to benefit veterans through the boot campaign. All you need to do is grab a can of ready-to-drink coffee online or from your local grocery or convenience store. The boot campaign is one of the most renowned veteran-focused nonprofits in the country, working tirelessly to provide life-changing aid and benefits to service members and their families. Join forces with Black Rifle in the boot campaign from May through the end of the year, where every can of ready-to-drink coffee you buy will contribute to making this massive donation possible. Black Rifle ready-to-drink coffee is available in several great-tasting flavors on the Black Rifle Coffee website, at your local convenience or grocery store, and no matter where you are, you can fuel your caffeine fix while supporting veterans. Every time you crack open a can of ready-to-drink, you'll be making a huge difference in the lives of veterans and their families. Black Rifle Coffee is committed to serving the veteran community, and with your help, we can all continue to make a difference. Let's raise a can together to keep fueling Americans for a good cause. Check out blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose and use code DangerClose20 at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose. Drink up. Welcome to the gear highlight portion of the Danger Close podcast. A lot of cool things to go over today. I'm going to start over here, a gift on book tour, and thank you to everyone who stopped by on book tour to say hello. I had a ton of amazing gifts. Sincerely appreciate each and every one, especially all the whiskey. But there's a ton of whiskey, honey, knives, coins, law enforcement, firefighters, FBI, DEA, Secret Service, patches. Thank you all so much for coming by on book tour. It was just a blast. And this right here, so wine rack, wine glasses hang upside down right there. And right here it says, take a breath, look around, make a call. That's something I learned from Jocko in one of my pre-deployment workups. And right there, cross tomahawks and never tell me the odds. I love that. It's kind of a mantra that I've lived my life by, and it's really never pay attention to the odds. That doesn't fit as well on things because people are going to tell you the odds, and they're going to tell you how hard it is to do something and how much the odds are against you and what's your backup plan. So it's really about never paying attention to those odds or using those comments as fuel. So thank you so much for this, and thank you to everybody who stopped by on Book Tour to say hello. And Magnum PI trading cards. Yes. So look at that. I think I should stay away from the bubble gum in there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to resist opening these up, but very thoughtful. Thank you so much, Magnum PI trading cards. Awesome. And Staccato. So right here, thank you guys. I'll show you right here. And check out Staccato. And they have some great pistols and just awesome crew over there. And if you can see, if you can zoom in, look at that, cross tomahawks right there. Oh yeah, and the American flag right there. So Buck and everybody out there at Staccato, thank you. Cannot wait to give this a run. Awesome. All right, whiskey. Oh yeah. Hooten Young, go to hootenyoung.com. Of course, Norm Hooten from Black Hawk Down. If you watch that movie, he was played by Eric Bana, Hoot in the movie. So that's Norm Hooten. And right here, you can get the Jack Carr Warrior Proof Whiskey Cross Tomahawks right there in the middle. Go to hootenyoung.com. Check this out. And yeah, and it's good. So definitely check that out. And to pair with that at officialjackcarr.com, you can get this whiskey flight. So 4 glasses like that. And check that out. That is very cool. So check that out, officialjackcarr.com. Click on shop in the upper right-hand corner. I will move these out of the way so I do not break them because I'll be using them later. And Montana Knife Company, what have you sent here? All right, the Marshall. So right here they come with this, tells you a little bit about the blade. Be sure and go to montanaknifecompany.com and sign up for their newsletter because once they do a drop, these things go quickly. Sticker right there, and the blade right here. Yep. So check them out. I have, whoa, look at this bad boy. Oh, there's a knife. Yeah, look at that. Oh, made in the USA, Josh Smith. Awesome. Follow them on Instagram as well, and be sure and sign up for that newsletter. Awesome. Thank you guys. And let's see. Here we go. And look at that stand. That thing is awesome. So this is the Spear LT right here, Tango Optic. I'll add a light to it. I'll add a sling to it. And yeah, this thing is awesome. I'll put some irons on there as well, but looking forward to getting out to Thunder Ranch and running through the paces with this thing right here. Awesome. Thank you, SIG. All right. I think that is it for today. Take care out there. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. To find out more about Remi Adeleke and what he has going on, you can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at RemiAdeleke. You can find me at Jack Carr USA on the social channels, officialjackcarr.com. That is the website. Click on shop in the upper right-hand corner for the merch. And if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure and leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. Until the next time, take care out there. Stay safe. Be strong. Keep fighting.